Welcome to the Goddess-ity podcast, where women come together and have the audacity to tell their truths. Are you choosing to live out loud while honoring the divine within? Well, ladies, this is your movement. Join Akili, April, Juanita, and Linda as they dive deep into topics like self-love, spirituality, and comedic wisdom. We call those the foundations of goddess life. Tap in with the goddesses every week to be inspired, uplifted, and empowered.
Okay, here we go. Well, hello. You guys ready?
Ready.
Yep,
Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Hello. It's the most energetic goddesses of the Goddess-ity podcast. Akili, April, Juanita, and myself, Linda. Here to bring you more inspiration and empowerment as we delve into topics to nurture your spiritual growth and, just as important, self-development among Black women and Black men as well. On today's podcast episode, we are discussing romantic partnerships. This dynamic can be viewed and discussed from many perspectives: societal expectations, family expectations, personal expectations, the historical roots of these partnerships as it relates to marriage in the African and African American culture. But for today's episode, our focus will be from a personal perspective of romantic partnerships. So that'll be, what is our understanding of these partnerships, the lessons learned, prioritizing personal growth within these partnerships, and navigating any challenges. So let's do what we do best and jump right in. So, goddesses, I want you to give thought to the questions that we're asking, and share with us and our audiences. So the first question is, what personal experiences have shaped your understanding of healthy romantic partnerships? So I'll start us off. But before I share my personal experiences, I just want to define a couple of words. So define romantic. And romantic is the conducive to or characterized by the expression of love. The next word I wanted to define is love. Love is an intense feeling of deep affection, but personally, I also like to say that love is an action, and there's a lot tied into that. Then partnership. So partnership within itself, it's an agreement between two or more people to oversee business operations and share its profits and liabilities. When you combine those two words, romantic partnership, this is the definition that I found. It's a meaningful exchange between two people based on emotional and physical attraction. It is about two people listening to each other and working together to accomplish a common goal, which is the building and sustainment of their romantic partnership. And this romantic partnership can include a sexual real partnership relationship. So, and also, I just wanted to add that there's a distinct difference in romantic partnership versus a romantic relationship. Again, the dynamics are plentiful. So our focus is on the partnership. And who knows, one of the goddesses might touch on the aspects of a romantic relationship as it relates to romantic partnership. Before I go on, I just want to add that if you are enjoying this video thus far, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so that you can be notified when we upload our videos, and also that when we go live. Now, again, the question proposed was, what personal experiences have shaped my understanding of a healthy romantic partnership? And that was my 20-year marriage, which ended in divorce. So around the year 19 of my marriage, it was a Saturday afternoon. I'm sitting at home, And I'm just in a moment of solitude, actually, just in a moment of solitude. And I just found myself asking the question of why was my husband doing the things that he was doing? I just felt that he was just making dumb decisions, decisions that impacted us and the marriage, and it just made it a struggle. And it felt like it was an uphill battle for us to walk on the same path. And that's when I had the biggest revelation. I I was in that constant state of pulling him back on that path, the path that I had defined of what marriage looked like, and what a partnership looked like. And the revelation was he did not want to be on that path. He may have asked me to marry him. And in him doing so, I was of the mindset of, okay, he's understanding the responsibility and the accountability of being in a marriage, the partnership of it, and what the requirements were. But that wasn't the case. His ideal of it, I would say, leaned more towards a romantic relationship and not the partnership. Um, so I made the difficult decision to divorce. Because in talking to you, it just seems very, I'm just saying this kind of like, oh, but no, there was a lot involved, and the stress that came along with that. Even prior to, I decided that it was in my best interest and the best interest of my children to go ahead and divorce him. And I'll be quite honest, after the divorce, I blamed him for me having to come to that decision and that determination to leave the marriage. But there was some point in my life where I then turned the focus on myself, and I was asking myself the question, what was it about myself that caused me to choose this man in particular? Because from the beginning, he was waving, waving high, these red flags. And I didn't ignore them. I thought I was trying to communicate through them. But what I realized is that my relationship, it was healthy. What I realized within myself is that I was vibrating low, low self-esteem, low self-worth. So as I continued to work on myself and loving myself properly, as my level of vibration rose, as I was able to trust myself more, to make the distinction between what a healthy man looked like, operated, moved, to make those distinctions, that was he healthy emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Over time, I learned how to, well, not learned, but I loved witnessing other couples who genuinely had that love, admiration, and respect. And it wasn't a show. And sometimes that love, admiration, and this respect wasn't the like, ooh, feel good moments. It was seeing the exchange in how they worked together or communicated with each other when they didn't agree, and were able to do those type of things without disrespecting the other person or discounting the other person, and knowing that they had a common goal, and moving forward. And so I took all those things that I was learning, the things that I was witnessing, and I'm pulling those things into my vibration, to um, in increase my energy, So I'm tucking those things into my cash, and helping myself, visualize what it is that I want, going forward, um, in a relationship, helping me fine tune it. So as I sum up, what my experiences, did for me, how it helped shape me in understanding what a healthy romantic partnership is. I took all the unhealthy aspects of my marriage, all the unhealthy aspects of myself, and just mentally revised them. How do I want to do things differently? How do I want to show up for myself, show up for my partner? I've been applying that knowledge because they can also be applied in other areas, friendships, but today we're talking about romantic partnerships. And so I acknowledge the areas where I myself was, again, operating at a very low level. And I am now able to answer that question, how did I end up choosing him? I chose him based on the level that I was at, that, not knowing my level of self-esteem was just way low, and so was his. But as I was growing throughout the marriage, he was remaining stuck. I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm excited about what's to come, and I'm just allowing things to be. Um, when I say allowing things to be, not putting forth that extra effort to chase after this healthy relationship, because I believe that what is for me is out there, and it will come to me, and it will come to me when I'm not only ready, because I feel that I'm ready now, but I'm still elevating every day. There's something different, and I'm just like, ooh, well, I'm glad someone didn't come into my life now, because just yesterday, well, based on today and what I've learned and what I'm doing today, it's just like, ooh, it's different. It's different. I've learned to trust myself, to trust my intuition. Um, I've learned to also communicate. So in romantic relationships that I've been in post divorce, when it just didn't work out, I'm able to comfortably, let that man know I'm not a good fit for you, or you're not a good fit for me. No, nothing malicious, but just being honest. It's not about me just I don't want to be in a relationship just for the sake to be in a relationship. So all in all, the key word in that question to me is healthy romantic partnership. And I can go into more specifics, but for the sake of time and for the sake of, respecting my fellow goddesses and allowing them to, jump in and add anything that they would like to, I'm going to pass the baton over to anyone that would, before we go into our next question, over to someone. And Akili, I see your hand raised.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes, I have something very quick. Thank you for sharing that with us, Goddess Linda. That was, I think, a very important way to get us started. And I want to piggyback just really quickly off of what you said when it comes to healthy, being as though I've been in a relationship for 29 years, married for 25 of those 29 years. When I think about healthy, that I feel like is a loaded term. It really can be, depending on what people consider health to really look like. And for me, I think about the things that were making me feel unhealthy in that 29 years and where those things were coming from. I think the roots of my discontent in things that were happening in my marriage were coming from a couple places. Number one, standards. Number two, attachment disguised as love. Okay. And when I say standards, well, let me go into attachment first. I think a lot of times we get confused with feeling attached to a person and thinking that that is loving them, not realizing that attachment has some very selfish components to it. Okay. And thinking that this person is going to meet all of these needs that you have. That expectation that you have of people as a result of your attachment, that is not loving them. And that is not a loving thing. In fact, it can be very violent to have those types of expectations of somebody who has never had this discussion with you, that they're able to meet these things, have the desire to meet them, are equipped to meet them, have the financial resources to meet them, have the wherewithal to meet them, or the desire to meet them. Okay. That's my one point. And then the standards piece is just that I realize that we create standards for ourselves based on the things that have happened in our childhood. Somebody crosses a line, and as a child, we're like, hey, nobody's ever going to hurt me like that again. I'm going to create a standard here at this point. No one else will be able to get past this gate. And then we hold everybody to that standard. And so you bring those things with you into your marriage. So removing those standards and realizing, again, this person that you have gotten into relationship with didn't do these things to you as a child. They weren't a part of the creation of the standard. So holding them to it, and even holding yourself to it, is likely going to create a great level of disappointment for you and them.
Mhm.
And that's
Wonderful.
2 cents. It's my
Well,
2 cents.
thank you, Goddess-ity. Well, Goddess April, can you bring us the next question?
Certainly. Thank you, Goddess Linda. My question is, what key lessons have you learned from past relationships that you apply to your current or future partnerships? So I have shared in previous episodes that I am currently separated but cohabitating. Okay. And I was in a romantic partnership slash marriage for about 12 years. So let's see. Actually, I'm sorry. If I go back, subtract 4, that's what? 8? That's when I think we officially separated. The first time. Okay. So I throw that in to say that is my current situation, just so you understand what I'm navigating. Okay. So what I want to first, because I feel like it's very hard for me to separate this, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I do want to acknowledge what Akili said, because it was hard for me to answer this question without acknowledging how my childhood, played a role in my expectations and how I thought I needed to show up in relationships and all the things, right? And how I looked at relationships. The second thing actually is and Goddess Akili, you actually beautifully articulated this in our episode on the parent-child dynamic. That was our first episode of this series. As you talked about that ancient Cometian perspective, that way of looking at relationships in terms of these soul contracts, right? And that everyone in your life has contracted with you, has agreed to play a role for your benefit and for theirs, right? And so luckily I have come into that understanding, and I truly have come to a place where I really believe that to be so. It's made so much sense of what I've gone through and the role that past partners have played in my life, leading up to the one that I'm currently in. And even the one that we'll still say in the situation ship that I'm in currently. Child. Oh man. So I wanted to say that because I don't think, if I had not come into that wisdom and able to shift my perspective, I don't think I would have really been able to acknowledge the lessons that I've learned. Okay. that I would not have been able to see those past partners and even the person who I'm currently still in this situation in as someone who was teaching me something. So I believe that every single, every person in my life, but in these romantic partnerships, they're there to show me something about me, right? Through it, we are mirroring each other. We are holding up a mirror and showing something to each other. And so the key things that I've learned that I would say that I've brought now moving forward as I think about why I'm still navigating what I'm in and even moving forward what I may want for myself or carry forward into potentially another relationship. It's really all boiled down to my value, my worth, right? Loving myself. These are what these relationships have helped me to be able to understand about myself and give me perspective in terms of how I value myself, the fact that I'm worthy, what my value is, that it's okay for me to have certain expectations of anyone that I am in relationship with, right? Um, and so, yeah, I feel like even now, because I shared in a previous episode that I was trying to figure out, like, why am I still in what I'm in, and what am I still trying to learn, and what is this still showing me? You know, I think that that's the beauty of, this wisdom, is that I'm able to literally, even when it's difficult, even when it's trying, even when I'm feeling however I'm feeling, it is a flag, it is a signal, it is something saying, stop. There's something going on here. There's something you're not acknowledging. There's something that you still need to see in regards to you.
Yes.
Right? In regards to you.
Yes.
What aren't you acknowledging about yourself? And what aren't you giving to yourself? And I feel like that is the major lesson that I would say, is that if at any point in time I'm not feeling affirmed, valued, respected, or whatever these things are, that I've come to understand that I'm all of those things. So if in my relationship I'm not feeling that way, and it's due to what someone else, my partner, is doing, some behavior or something I'm not getting, it is a sign. And I think one of you ladies even posed that to me. And it may have been you, Goddess Linda, what are you looking for from that person that you aren't giving to yourself?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you posed that. And
Yes.
that is a major, that is probably the biggest lesson that I will continue to take forward, is I'm feeling this way for a reason, because our emotions are, they're there, they are our best friends, right? What are you feeling and why are you feeling it? And getting to the bottom of what I need to do about it. So, and that's the bottom line. I feel like it's very true, and I'll just end with this, that whole idea that, again, your life is a reflection. It's not just the people, but your life in general. How is your life feeling to you, right? Because it's all a reflection of your internal environment and how you're feeling and what's going on with you, where you're at in your life. So anyway, I'll stop there. And if any of the goddesses would like to chime in regards to any past experiences that have taught you any major key lessons that you would want to apply to your current or future relationships. Please do.
Chime in.
Yeah.
I would think I learned a lot before I got married. I had a lot of relationships and they were so similar. It was just hilarious when I go back and look at it because it seems like I always was finding someone who needed help in some area, right? I was always like looking for someone that still had not reached the place of maturity they needed to be at. And there I was to help them along the way. Whether it was they needed help with something financially, they needed some help with some direction of their life. Wow, I was the person that came in and saved the day. So I thought. But what really ended up happening was that each time that I tried to, I guess you could say, try to save someone else in a relationship, I end up losing a part of myself. And so what I realized from those relationships and I think it was that thing about just feeling needed, right? Wanting to feel like someone needed you. And that was for me, I don't think that was something I went into the relationship thinking that I was doing, but I felt needed. And that for some reason gave me some type of feeling about I guess maybe some self-worth about myself because I felt like I could help someone. But what I found out, like I said before, I was meeting these people. It was something they needed from me. I would get to a point that I was tired of giving, with getting nothing in return. And then I would say, I'm done, right? And then I would be all upset with them. I'd be all mad with them. I would be feeling like, oh, they mistreated me. They misused me, blah, 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 Juanita. But when I went back and looked at it later in life, I was like, you can't blame them because you were there with your hands just wide open saying, take it, take it, take it. I mean, you know what I mean? When you go back and look at it, you just laugh and you go like, wow. It's like, you can't blame them because they were just doing, I mean, you were just like offering and they say, why not? Right. So, I mean, I think that's something I learned is that I guess in any relationship, you have to really understand why, what are you looking for in that relationship? What is it about that person? You know, is it some need that you have that you feel like this person is going to fulfill? And then I think you have to say, whatever the need is, can they really fulfill that need for you, right? And most of the time, whatever the need is, at least it was for myself, it was really something I needed to find within myself. It was nobody that was ever gonna make me feel worthy. If I didn't feel worthy, they could never do that. So it's like I was expecting something from them that they could never give, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Goddess Juanita. Yeah, I can so relate to that. I'll just add this real quick and then we'll go back to you, Goddess April. No, you're good. Okay, because I was complaining to a girlfriend, and just, about this guy I was dating, and she said, well, why are you mad? And I said, I just explained everything to you. She said, but no, why are you mad? Why are you mad at him? I said, did you not hear what I just said? She said, no. Why are you mad at him for being who he is?
Ooh.
Yeah.
And I had to pause and look. I said, oh my goodness, she's right. Why am I mad at him for being who he is? And I'm trying to, wanting him to change some things because that doesn't align up with who I am. It's like, Linda, that means remove yourself.
Yep.
Remove yourself. Don't
Yeah.
be mad at him for being who he is.
Yeah.
If it doesn't align up with who you are, say, okay, good. Nice to know you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that goes right into what you were saying, Goddess April. Awesome lessons learned. So we're gonna move this
Well,
train.
let me say this
Okay.
before you do. I will say I'm glad that you said that because I was trying to not go over when I was talking about them being a reflection, but that was the last thing I was gonna say. Like, even though somebody is showing something about you and it's about, the work that you need to do with yourself, it doesn't mean that ultimately you may not realize, like you said, you need to move on. Right? Sometimes that's what you need to do in order for your life to then reflect what you needed to do, because they're where they're at. You know what I'm saying?
And it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them wrong.
Does not.
It doesn't make you wrong for leaving, but it makes you wrong for wanting to change that person
That
from being
part.
who they are. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what Eckhart
Thank
Tolle
you.
said.
What you say?
I said, that's what Eckhart Tolle said. He said, in any situation, you have three choices. You can either accept it, you can change it, or you can leave it. Those are the only three things that you can do.
No,
I don't
really.
even know if you can change it, but the only change
Sometimes you just need to leave it.
That's it. The choice is yours, but those are the three choices that you have in any situation.
any situation.
I feel like the change thing, when we get into the conversation and have that about manifestation, because I think we're going to have an episode on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is the principle or the idea that when you change within and how you feel and your idea about them, then they will inevitably change as well, right? When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Child, I don't know how true that is, but we can get into it when we get into that.
Yeah, and we will get into
we
that.
will
Because
get into that.
I got some. I want to speak on that. Let's just say I want to speak on that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So now we'll pass the baton over to Goddess Juanita. And what question do you have before us today?
Hello, my question is, how do you prioritize personal growth while being in a romantic relationship, and what impact does it have on your partnership? I guess first thing I would say, as far as personal growth is concerned, I guess one of the main things you have to do is you have to first understand what your personal goals are, right? As a person, as two people in a relationship, you both are in a relationship, but you both have your own personal and professional goals. You have things that you want to work on. So, for instance, for me, I'm into the kinetic physical things. So I'm into daily. I want to do my meditations, my visualizations. I do my workout. And my husband, he does his workout. He does his things. So usually what I try to do is I usually try to time a lot of those things on a daily basis during the times when he's at work, because he gets up and goes to work earlier than I do, probably like 2 to 3 hours before I do. So when I get up, he's not at home. So I can do a lot of those things. And then he goes to bed earlier than I do because he has to be up and at work at 3 o'clock. So I try to time those things in those spaces when he and I can't be together because we're separated already. And then he does the same thing. He does his workout when I'm there. And so we try to do those, our personal things, kind of when we're not together. So that way we have more time to spend together. The other thing I would say is that, we both have, since we've been married, because of course we've always married almost 30 years, we're 27 years this year. And during that time, we have changed. We both have changed so much. I think when you first get married, you really don't think about how much you're going to change and what you're thinking, 27 years ago, and what you're thinking as you continue in marriage is going to change so drastically. But we both, I would say we had a good foundation, because I would say this from the church. One thing that we did do is we went through this whole, maybe like a 2-week conference kind of thing, where we talked about, how we were going to budget our money. We talked about money, finances. We talked about where we we're going to live, how many kids we wanted. So we had a really good foundation about how we came together in the beginning. And I think from that, what helped us along our journey as we're going now is we usually, probably every 3 to 6 months, we check in with each other. We're like, okay, well, how are you feeling? How are things going on your job? And we talk, on a regular basis, but we'll just think about, what's going on? What are you thinking about doing? We might talk about planning a vacation. We might talk about what kind of saving goals we have. But we instituted this thing when we had kids, and that was what we call date night. Every 2 weeks, we go out on a date. We go somewhere, we do something, and we've been, since the kids were little, they always know. So even now they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a date night. Yeah, so we still do that. We probably don't do it as much as now we just go, because we don't have to worry about planning for the kids. But it used to be a thing where we had to plan somebody to set, so we call date night, right? So we still try to do that at least every 2 weeks. We try to go do something where it's just us and we're just focusing on ourselves. So I would think setting goals, making sure that you set a time for each other. You got to have that special time to come together. You also have to have a time that you can talk to each other and communicate. Like, when I started to do all this comedic physical stuff, when I started changing from Christianity to this, I basically had to have a conversation with my husband, or he probably thought I was crazy if all of a sudden I didn't talk to him about some of the things that I would do that was differently. I mean, he noticed it, he saw it, he could see me, the way I was talking, and I was talking about, because as I was learning all these things, I was sharing it with him. And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He was kind of, at the same time, started listening to people and getting in the same mindset. So it was just really interesting how we both kind of came to that same point at the same time, right?
Beautiful.
And so it wasn't any kind of friction there because we both were kind of growing in the same direction. And his is not as, I would just say he does some things. It's not as ritual as mine, where I'm doing something every day or every week, I'm doing these kind of things. His is more of, he's just really good about just being. Just whatever comes, whatever doesn't, he's just very easy, laid back, don't get excited. I'm the one that's always got to plan everything down to the, nth degree. He can just go with the flow. And I've always, I guess you could say in a way, in our relationship, I've always wanted to have more of that be a part of me, because I've always been the one that felt like I had to worry about every little thing, right? And so I would say that part is good for us because I'm the more serious one. He's the more, and so we kind of fit together well. So some other things I would say is, I said, set goals, have your personal time, and try to have it, during a time when they're doing something personal herself. Hang out, like I said, I've mentioned a couple times, on Sundays during football season, for me, perfect. I love it. I know a lot of spouses, they complain about, my husband's gonna be gone all day. Man, I'm like, yes. I have a whole day just to myself to do what I want to do. Yay! So I take advantage of that time. And then I think communication in any relationship, I don't care how long you're in a relationship. I mean, it's best, especially for romantic partnership, it's very, very important. And I guess another thing we have to really talk about when you talk about romantic partnerships and what do you learn through personal growth, there's needs that both people need, right? There's some things, I think for a woman part, maybe I need more of the support and encouragement. Maybe I need somebody to tell me I'm beautiful. I need somebody to, give me those kind of accolade things. For my husband, I think he needs someone to, same thing. Tell him that he's handsome. Tell him that he's a great father. He's a great husband. And also there's that, there's this sexual component, which we haven't really talked about yet. That has to happen in a relationship. I've heard people being married and somehow they they just don't want to have sex anymore. It's like but to me, it's like without that, I'm not saying you couldn't have it, I guess, but it just seems like you become more romance, because that passion, that romance, that part, that is kind of the thing that connects you. It gives you that extra spark. You know what I mean? It makes you look forward to when you're gone for a week or so. You're excited about coming back because you're waiting for that spark. So that part has to be there. And what I would say, and I've seen people use it, especially women, to me, it's like you should never use sex as a weapon. I think in a relationship, that is a doomed thing to do. I mean, if you want your relationship to fail, do that. You know what I mean? that is just a thing that you don't do. Is it because I would say me and my husband, we've had arguments, but we have never, ever done that. Another thing that we've always said to each other, we will never call each other out of our names. We will never curse each other. And through our whole marriage, we have never done that. We have never because we felt like that would be disrespectful. We said we would never call each other our name. We would never use the B, none of those words at each other. We would never curse each other. There was just some things that we said we would never do. And we haven't done those things, because I feel like when you do certain things in your relationship, it will change you. Because once you say something and it's very hurtful, and I don't care how many times you apologize, you can't take some things back. Because in the back of somebody's mind, that word that you said, that thing, it's always going to be there. So I would just say, you have to communication, but also you have to be very careful with your words. And if you're at a point that you're angry and it's like my husband does it very well. He just doesn't talk. He just gets very quiet and he just says, I don't want, right now, I don't want to say anything. And at the beginning, I just didn't understand that. But now I do, because I do believe that you can say some things that you can never take back. So I just think if I talk about relationships, trust, respect, communication, and love. The last thing I want to say is about love. People say, oh, we're in love, we fell out of love. I don't believe in falling out of love. I don't think that's possible. I think we choose. We choose to love and we choose not to love. There might be a part of us that say, hey, right now I want to love you. And something happens and we say, I don't want to love you anymore. But love is not this emotion. It's not like, oh, I love you. And I feel, people be saying, and I was like, that's not really true. It's because I choose to love my husband every day. I make that choice. I've made that choice for 27 years. Every day I choose that. And so I just like, to me, love is a choice.
Yes.
It's not this ooh feeling that you get, right? That's lust probably. I don't know. But that's for me, that's pretty much, but I would just say trust, love, and respect, communication are the keys to really being able to grow with your partner, in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Any other goddesses have anything to add about growing in romantic relationships, personal growth?
I do want to say that I feel like personal growth is an interesting thing. It depends on, again, the journey that you guys are on in your relationship. I know for me, I'm not going to tell everybody what sign I am right now, but there is constant transformation, child. Okay. And so I think dealing with somebody like me, you have to be able to deal with somebody who's going to change and welcomes change. Like for me, I'm not afraid to change. I'm not afraid to go into the depths and get the information and look at stuff. And it's ugly, it's beautiful, it's whatever it is, I'm here for the whole experience. Everybody's not ready to deal with that, right? Some people appreciate stagnation. Some people appreciate the simplicity of knowing, okay, this is what's going to happen every single day. Somebody like me, that's going to drive me crazy a little bit. I do like some components of stability for sure, but I have a constant need to transform and grow. And the way that that can impact a relationship just depends on the appetite, I feel like, that your partner has for that. People don't always take that into consideration, like Goddess Juanita said, is how is this person going to be as they grow? We always assume that as people grow, it's going to be for your good. No. And no. Let me just say, as they grow, that doesn't mean it's always going to be for your benefit. Okay. Doesn't mean it's always going to serve you unless you're willing to support that growth. And we're all not wired that way.
Yep. So it's definitely some challenges.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely some challenges. And Juanita, I just want to thank you for giving us some insight into your marriage and how things have evolved. And it just got me to thinking what you were saying, how you think from the beginning and how you're thinking 27, 30 years later. People don't give thought to that.
Yeah.
My then fiance, we went through a premarital counseling.
Yeah.
We never made it beyond the first question. He refused. This is where I'm blaming him. I'm like, he refused to cooperate. And I was near tears. And I wanted the instructor to say, hey, y'all need to call this off because y'all can't even get on the same page.
No.
The question was, what was something that is a pet peeve of yours or something along that line? And I simply said, I don't like the cap on the toothpaste to be left off. That's all I said. I said, that's a pet peeve of mine. And the way this man responded, and he was just like, well, if I choose to take it off and throw it on the floor, then whatever, I'm like, hey, we're trying to communicate and, and it's like, okay, where can we meet each other on this? And I'm sitting over there in tears and I'm like, the other couples are just moving on about finances, about children, we never made it off the first question. And I'm like, in my mind, I just wanted him to say, y'all need to leave. And I'm not signing off on this certificate because we were both in the military. So that was a requirement.
Yeah.
Before we could actually, get married, our command required that. And so again, those are lessons learned for me. Yeah. Yeah, girl. We were not in alignment from the jump off of toothpaste.
I'm like, why did it have to get on the floor? I mean, he just went for it. Didn't he? Like, I'm gonna throw it. Not only am I not putting it back, I'm throwing it on the floor. Just
Yeah.
why, God?
Now,
Yeah.
now do something about it, right? Like,
Exactly. Exactly. I'm just like, man. So if that gives y'all any indication of working against somebody for 20 years, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
That's quite
Well,
fantastic.
ladies, I
did anyone
actually-
else have anything?
Oh.
No, April, did you have anything to add?
I actually do. I just thought of something. There is an emotional intelligence, I'm going to say expert, that I came across to go along with what Goddess Juanita was saying. She actually was saying that she thought it was interesting that people, because the premarital thing, I think makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It helps you to get to the bottom of some very foundational things.
Mhm.
And she was saying, it's so strange that, people are just like in love. They're doing it out of the love. This is my person. I
Yeah.
want to be with my person. And it's the feelings, right?
Mhm.
Like what Goddess Anita said, you feel
Yeah.
like you love this person. And she's like, when we make a big purchase, which
Mhm.
marriage is the most, right, potentially,
Yes.
right? It's the most permanent thing that you can do,
Mhm.
potentially. So when you buy a house, you get it appraised, you get it, you look into it, you
Yes.
do the, right? And so she was like, y'all just be after the fact, figuring out why y'all doing what y'all doing. So anyway, she gave these 3 questions, and I thought they were pretty good in terms of asking yourself these things before you jump into marriage. And so she even said, like, when a man proposes, and it could be the other way around, whoever's doing the proposing, okay? When they're asking you to marry them, you really need to be figuring out to do what? Marry you to do what?
Yes.
And literally,
Yes.
the first question is, what are you getting married to do? And I know that sounds crazy, right? But really getting very clear on what does the marriage entail? Like,
Right.
why are we coming together?
Together. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Why are we coming together? Because you can date, you can have fun, you can have sex, you can do all the things and have a romantic relationship. But like what Goddess Linda saying, why are we partnering? Why are we entering into these agreements to do what? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So number 2 is, who are you trying to become? And this, I think, goes along with what Goddess Achille was kind of alluding to, right? Because, and Goddess Juanita, you're not going to remain the same. Or for some people, you might. And that may not be a good fit for the other person.
Right.
So you want to know, are they even thinking about that?
Yeah.
Meaning individually, who are you trying to become? And as a couple, who are you trying to become?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The last one was, what are you trying to have? So what is the end game? If you think about success, that we've done this thing and we've accomplished something that we've wanted to accomplish, whether it is a certain lifestyle, whatever it is, what is it that we want to have?
Yeah.
And I would imagine potentially something that it makes sense for the 2 of you to come together in order to create it.
Mhm.
Right? So I just thought that those were really interesting questions that I don't know that people think about, or think to ask
Yeah.
before making these life-changing decisions, right? I know
Yeah.
I did not. I'm just saying.
Yes, life-changing decisions. Yes.
Well, I know that
So-
I will be taking note of those questions and keeping them posted so that when the potentials show up, it's like,
Yes.
okay, where's our thought process on this?
Yes.
And you
Yes,
can find out real
very
quick when
nice.
you get there, Linda. Once you start asking them questions, you'll find out real quick what they're interested in. real fast. I thought there's some very good questions because by the time I got ready to marry my husband, I already knew. I knew I wanted to have a family. That was the purpose of me getting together. And I wanted to find someone that I could spend the rest of my life with, somebody that I could share my life with till I die, right? I see myself being the people growing old together, right? So those are very good questions because I think that's a good point,
Yeah, very good
very
point.
good points.
It's real
Yeah.
quick. So probably about 6 or 7 years after I had divorced, I went to visit an uncle. It was actually on my ex-husband's side, but really good uncle. And as soon as I got out of the car, because my whole family was just surprised and shocked when I told them that, hey, we're divorcing.
Yeah.
But as soon as I stepped out of the car, he looked at me and he said, "Now I understand why. You grew up, he never did."
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. Same thing, wow. And that helped me still settle with my decision. But
Mhm.
yes, it makes a big difference,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you again, April, for sharing those questions. They're very thought provoking. And I think if we could take the time to actually answer those questions, we could make some better decisions about our romantic partners.
So I'm coming in with the final question today, and that is, how can I share, or will I share, or do I have a significant challenge that I can speak about that I faced in the romantic relationship, and how did we overcome it together? And in 29 years, as you all can imagine, we have seen a number of challenges. But the one that I want to focus on today was one that, really, I would say, rocked us to the core of our marriage. And that was the loss of our first child. Um, I didn't understand necessarily because you guys know I have to always go down this path here for just a little moment, just in a little teaching path for just a moment. When we talk about the infant and mortality rates and maternal, fetal medicine as it relates to Black women and the lack of care that we receive. And more recently, you see that um, almost the more educated we become and the higher we move up in society, the larger our gap is within the medical system. And I do believe that, in the loss that my husband and I faced, I was 7 months pregnant. I started having some complications at home that day. I remember it like clockwork. And I called my obstetrician. They asked me some questions. They didn't want to see me until that afternoon. Um, because I knew I was in an active state of something being wrong, I drove myself to the hospital, and the hospital put me on monitors and kept me there for a minute. And, a couple hours, they're like, "You're fine, just go home." Right. I left the hospital and then still went to the doctor's appointment that I had with my regular obstetrician that didn't want to see me. I went to that appointment that afternoon, and they were like, "We got to get you across the street to the hospital because the baby's foot, we can already see, is trying to come out of your cervix." Right. And so, in being at the hospital, they tried to undergo all these processes and procedures to stop the labor, but by that time it was already too late. I ended up having to have the baby. He was 1 pound, 15 ounces, 12 inches long. And then we had to go through a process of, what parents go through if they're going to go through a process now of trying to figure out what happens when your child has passed away. And so, you go to the hospital with the view of thinking that everything is going to be okay. You hope so. You were just pregnant yesterday, and now here you are the next day with no baby to bring home, and all of these other things that now you have to be concerned about before you guys even get into the throes of really starting your family. And with that, it, I think, put my husband and I just really into a tailspin of not knowing not knowing what to do. Like it almost put us in a space where we didn't know how to be there for each other. I know for me, because we had to have a funeral and all kinds of things, right? As I was watching them lower a very small blue casket into the ground, I felt like I was insane. Like I almost felt like it was a surreal situation, like this can't be happening. This is impossible. That if we just open up this box, I can get my baby out of there and I can go home and everything's gonna be fine. This isn't occurring, right? I literally felt like I was snapping at that moment. And I remember right after the funeral, um, you know, everybody that was there, you know, my parents, his mother, they were like, "Well, what do you want to do now?" I said, "I want to go look at model houses." And they took me to go look at model houses, and I walked around and looked at models, and that was what I did. Now, while I was in the hospital after I had had the baby, a lot of people from my family were there. And all I was doing in the process was cracking jokes, trying to keep everybody happy. Everybody was trying to comfort me, and I couldn't handle that was happening. So I'm trying to keep everybody else's spirits up during the entire process. Um, and it was really challenging for me to get to a space where I could just be still and think about what happened. All I knew was that in order for me to get out of this massive amount of pain that I was dealing with, and that based on the look on my husband's face, I knew that he was dealing with, I was going to have to try to find a way to have another baby. That was going to be the only thing that was going to fill this gap that we had had. And so I filled my mind in that space and that shadow with just focusing on, okay, we got to have another baby. We got to have another baby. We got to have another baby. And, I feel like as soon as the doctor said that we were physically able to do that, that is what we did. And I got pregnant with my son, who is almost 23 years old now, just a few months later. And I bring all that up to say that the loss of a child is one of those things that they say really breaks couples up. It is a common thing that will tear you apart. And I understand it because there is nothing to be said. It's like people would try to comfort us by saying things like, it's God's plan. Um, that one, I was like, well, I know you think that's making me feel better, but it's not. I don't know that that's sitting well with me. Because I feel like as a Black woman, and this is not necessarily something, of course, that we think about first, you feel like you still have to be so strong. The idea of, okay, well, I need to go to probably some counseling, or I need to try to deal with some level of grief. That didn't even get into my mind. I was like, I just have to do.
Yeah.
Right. I have to be in the space. If I can take action to remove this feeling, because I couldn't stand how I was feeling, then that's what I was going to do. And so, we really just didn't get the opportunity to do anything other than be in the throes of parenthood again. So it was kind of picking up where we left off, but there was a piece of us that was, a little broken. I just think it was something that we didn't acknowledge. We didn't um, take the time to grieve because we just couldn't. And I can't say today that I know how that feels, right? To be able to sit in it and grieve with it for a long time, or at least if I do, we did it in a way that just was not probably like what people would recommend. Um, because of my belief in metaphysics and cometicism and all of that good stuff, I do feel like that soul or that spirit of our first child gave me like the permission to keep moving forward, almost by coming to me and saying, you know what, it really wasn't my time to be here just yet. Right. And there was a level of peace that I had about that. And even though my husband and I don't necessarily practice the same spiritual view 150%, there are times when I can share things with him that are comforting to him. And that is something that I believe he was able to at least nod and acknowledge, not necessarily, really take it in like, okay, this is something that I believe fully and completely, but at least it gives him some semblance of the fact that, I do think about this, and this is something that's important to me, and this is something that I feel based on my intuition. I'm just letting you know this is the message that I got from it. But it's not ever something that we really got into talking about fully and completely. And I know the question was about how did we overcome it? And my true belief is that the only way that we were able to overcome it was to put ourselves back into the situation almost as if it never happened. And I don't know that I would tell somebody else to do it that way, because grief is a very personal thing. Your journey is a very specific thing. But I know that if I didn't get out of that pain, I feel like it would have been so much more detrimental for us. And so I almost feel like my son, that is here today, saved us in some shape, form, or fashion. There are times where I just felt like that positive pregnancy test almost saved my life. Not that I felt like I was going to end my life. I just couldn't imagine living just with that level of insanity is the only thing that I can say that it was. So I don't even know if that was helpful. I'm gonna just tell y'all right now.
I mean, I
It is
think it
all
was.
helpful.
Like,
think it
oh
was-
my word.
I think it
Go
was helpful in just displaying how, when you are in a relationship with someone, how you can go through something and, how you get through it. Sometimes you just get through it day by day, whatever comes, right?
Yes.
There's no real plan because, like you're saying, something like that, me and my husband, we lost our first child too. And something like that, how do you get through it? I don't know. You just get through it day by day, right? It's just a day by day thing. You cry, me and my husband, we just cried together. I just put it that way. We just boohooed together. I'm a big boohooer anyway, so we just cried until, literally for me, I cried till I just didn't have nothing left to cry. Till I was just dry.
Yeah.
And then after I did it, I was okay. It was almost like purifying, I guess, in a way, when I just let it all go.
Yeah.
So I think everybody does it differently, though. It's no right. How you get through a challenge in a relationship is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's however you can do it, right? Whatever you have to do it.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that, Juanita, because the reason I say that is that I feel like there is a view that in a relationship, you guys are always going to be able to look to one another as these pillars of strength.
Right.
Feel like as people, again, that is an expectation that we have that just may not be met because it's hard to equip somebody to know, okay, this is how you're going to have to deal with these things.
Right.
And when you go to somebody and you're expecting that strength or somebody to nurture you or make you feel like everything is going to be okay. It's not to say that they could say or do anything that is going to make you feel that way, because it was nothing that anyone could tell me would make me feel
not a thing.
that everything was going to be okay. It was impossible. And nobody knew what to say. I felt their discomfort. I felt bad because they felt bad. Then I didn't know what to do with them. And I was like, you know what? This is too much.
Like you're just saying, there's gonna be some things you're gonna have to go through that you can never imagine. You can't prepare for it, right? It's nothing you can prepare yourself for. And you don't even know when you go through those relationships if that person is actually going to be able to hang in there with you, right? You don't know. I mean, he don't know if he gonna be able to, when the stuff gets tough, are we gonna really be able to depend on each other? I think that's the biggest thing in a relationship. Is like when things, when it's going good, everybody can hang in, but when things go bad, are you gonna be there, right?
Right, right.
Absolutely.
When you have challenges, if you have some solid understanding and agreement on what are we doing this for, where are we trying to go and what we're trying to have type thing,
Yeah.
it can ground you in a way where despite the chaos, despite the loss, despite what's going on, it could potentially refocus you on the end game, on the goals, on the why we're in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is it that is going to keep us in it to win it no matter what happens? First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. Both you and Juanita, those are very personal. I mean, to me, it's just like on another level. So I appreciate you sharing that story and going into detail in that way. But I think what's really profound that came out of it for me is understanding, and you even pointed this out, and it makes sense about these expectations that we have and all of these things. And I think like we generalize, we have like, whether it's gender roles, all of these things, it is personal. Not only is grief a personal experience, you all are two unique and individual people. So to compare your particular relationship to anyone else's in terms of how you should be navigating, right? How you all should be handling something, that I think that is a mistake, that we tend to do. We're looking at these examples and these role models, and role models are great. Okay. They're great in terms of, just aspiring, or even somebody that you can even hopefully have a couple that maybe you can get guidance from or something like that. But to hold yourself to what someone else has or how they're going about it or doing something. I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that part of when you say that, what you've shared is an example of that, is that it is personal. It's not going to look like everybody else. Not like each other. How you handle things is not necessarily going to be the same within the relationship. So why would it even be similar necessarily to what a whole nother couple is doing and how they're navigating their life? So
Yes.
so no, I really appreciate that.
As we wrap up, I just want to say that April, you just summed it up just perfectly. You hear people saying, relationship goals. Yes, a couple maybe have relationship goals, but you're just looking at one little snapshot of their life of when they've stepped out in public and put themselves together to present themselves, and you don't know actually the ins and outs of what they're going through. So define that for yourself. Define what your goals are. Those questions that you presented to us, perfect. Use those. Define what is your own relationship, because what two individuals come together and say that this is what we want, and you have a different couple, and what they want is completely different from what this couple wants, doesn't make either couple wrong. But don't base how you get to where you want to be in your relationship on how they're getting to where they want to be. Talk to each other. And I want to encourage you, our audience, to comment. What are some of the things that you have understand to be a good, healthy relationship, and how it shaped you? What are some lesson learned that you can help, share and spread with us all? What other tips that you have for personal growth? I just loved how, Juanita and her husband, when they're not together, they use that time for their personal growth, so that when they are together, they can use that time for each other, for uplifting and edifying one another.
Now, I do
So
want to say one thing. Me and my
yes.
husband are not perfect. So I'm not saying that we get it perfect
No,
all the
no, no.
time. Just want to make sure. Just want to
No,
put
not
that
at
out
all. But
there.
I enjoyed that. Not only that I enjoyed that, but it was a good tip,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
good
because I mean,
tip.
in all
But
honesty,
trust me, we have our challenges.
well, yeah, but in all honesty, when you listen to people, you know, I've listened to other friends and family members, and it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. It's just when you're choosing to do it.
Yeah.
Your spouse is asking for your time, and you
Yeah.
had all these hours to
Yep.
devote to just you when it was just you. But
Mhm.
now, when there
Yep.
is time for you and your spouse, you're choosing yourself over the unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you for sharing that, you know, with us. So again, please like, subscribe, share, press that notification button. You know, we thank you again for spending this time with us. Much love to all of you. And bye. Ashe.
Of peace and soul.